And hello, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's Monday, and this is Boles.tv. Boles.television, BOLES.tv. Oh, what a weekend we've had. Trying to recover from the disappointment of the Nebraska game. On Friday, we had this fun exclamation point command. Huskers, go Big Red. And today, exclamation point, boo, go Big Boo. And we're going to discuss this for just a moment because it's really a fascinating topic, economically, spiritually, conjunctivitisly, about what the University of Nebraska is going to do about this terrible football team, and a coach who is unable to lead them into victory. Oh, it's a football school. Well, we're going to find out it's a little bit more than that. And the saddest part of it all is that the university was offering a package deal to their best donors. You fly over on the Husker jet, you stay in a nice hotel, and you get great tickets. And I guess 80% of the stadium on Saturday was filled with red Husker fans, and purple Northwestern fans were about 10%. Overwhelming support for Huskers. That's the one thing people like about the Huskers, is that the fans travel well. So, the whole week, people were there wearing red all over Ireland. And then the day after the game on Sunday, there was no red to be found anywhere. People still wore their cowboy hats and their cowboy boots, so you knew where they were from. But none of them were wearing red. And who can blame them after that ridiculous, humiliating defeat, where Nebraska was predicted by many, many, many experts, gambling experts, television experts, fans, college football fans, that Nebraska was going to win by 40 points. And they lost by 3. Now, if you've been watching the Huskers for the past 4 years, you know that's nothing new. That's what they do under this coach. They play well at the beginning, then they don't show up at the end. As a rival coach said about Nebraska, they are a great bus team. Nobody really knew what that meant. Is he making fun of us? Is it an insult? Well, it seems like the internet kind of figured it out. Oh, it's an insult. Meaning, when you get off the bus, your team is tall and proud and strong and vital, intimidating, and then they play the game and they fall apart. You don't want to be a bus team. But the sad part is all these donors who went on this extravaganza, delayed for a year, to Ireland as part of the Nebraska package. For 2 people going on that trip, they paid $8,000. Now, sure, if you're a regular person, you're going to Ireland and you're going to have an elite, wonderful trip, $8,000 might be reasonable. I don't think I would ever pay that for any kind of experience, like a cruise or a trip to anywhere. But when you're a Husker fan, you're paying that money because you're expecting a win. And there were people who the deadline was February. And they would say, should we pay the $8,000? Should we not? Should we go? And there were people all over the internet sighing bits of relief saying, I'm glad we didn't go. We knew this was going to happen because that's who the Huskers are. So how do they get out of it? So we have a new athletic director, Trev Alberts. Used to play for Nebraska, went on ESPN for a few years, was an analyst, bad-mouthing the Huskers every chance he got so he could show that he was not biased in favor of the Huskers. Hey, Gordon says, good heavens, that's big money. That's Galactic Star Cruiser money. That's a lot of money. $4,000 a person. Woo. For about a week in Ireland. And I'm sure it's nice playing, food, expenses, but most of that money you're going is a donation to the university. And when they changed the season tickets, 10 years ago, it wasn't just buying a season ticket, which is like, let's say $1,000 for the year. And if you have a family, that's $7,000 for each ticket you have together. And you can pass them down to your family. And then, so that's $7,000 for your season tickets, which a lot of people are willing to pay. Then the university got the bright idea like, oh, we're going to do what all the other schools do, which is a big mistake. We're going to charge seat licenses, which are mandatory donations to the university. So if you want your season tickets, you first have to purchase a seat license, which sounds ridiculous. And a seat license for a seat in the stadium for 7 games a year, $12,000. So not only are you paying $1,000 for your ticket, but to sit in your seat 7 times a year costs you $12,000. And you don't like it, you can get out. And that's what the university said, and a lot of people, old-time fans, got out. Because who can, if you have a family of 7, and you're used to paying $7,000, now suddenly you have to pay 7 times 12? Just for a seat? That's a lot of money. And people just gave up their tickets. We have friends who were season ticket holders for 30 years, 40 years. And when the seat license ridiculousness popped up, they said, we're done with that. So they bring in Trev Alberts, who was in Omaha and who closed the football team in Omaha and invented the ice hockey team in Omaha, which has found some success, brought to Lincoln to shake things up. Well, he met with the head coach, Scott Frost, who was a son of Nebraska, born there, went there, played football there under Osborne, won a national championship, coming back to save the farm, the family, the team. And 4 years, utter failure. So Trev didn't, I guess, want to get rid of him. People said he should have got rid of him last year. But he made Scott fire all of his staff that he brought with him from Florida, where he did win some games, and hire all new people. And, by the way, you're the head coach, you're the manager of all the coaches. You're not calling the offense. You're just like the manager, the CEO of the football team. And Scott said, okay. I think they're still paying him $5 million a year. But the thing that changed is they said, okay, Scott, so if you want to stay, you can stay another year. You have to meet certain metrics, a certain number of games won, I guess, but we don't know what that is. And Freedom of Information Act requests are not revealing what the terms are, but Scott keeps his job. But the big thing they changed was his buyout, that if he's fired, he was to be paid $15 million. And this is from the old athletic director, who I guess liked to drink a lot and was best friends with Scott, and they would go out drinking and partying even though they were both married. And lots of rumors about being with undergraduates, but rumors are rumors, but there's a reason that Bill Moose is no longer at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. $15 million to fire him. So Trev said, okay, look, if you want to stay another year, you'll stay another year. We'll replace all of your staff. And your buyout is going to drop to $5 million, which is still a ridiculous amount of money for someone who has failed. And Scott Frost, the guy, when I knew him, is a nice guy. What he is now, I don't know. He's very rich now. He's $15 million over 5 years. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln for a losing record. So Scott said, okay, I'll lower the buyout, but I don't want you to get rid of me now after the first game this year. So Scott negotiated 6 games. The buyout to fire me is $15 million. Game 7 on, I think it's October 11th, something like that. People have already figured this out. From then on, after you give me 6 games to get everything in order, then we'll drop it to $5 million for a buyout. And Trev said, okay. So that's the deal. And after the first game, Scott Frost, as he has done for 4 years, pooped the bed, as they say in France. Ridiculously painful. And there are people on the internet who are taking up donations, $100 at a time, to raise $10 million for the university so they can fire Scott Frost right now. So they don't have to wait 6 games. And hey, it's not just me. This is fascinating from the downfall. Now, some people say the prodigal son comes back to rescue the team. Now, the problem with the prodigal son is not the prodigal son. This is not a failure and a comeback. The prodigal son was actually earlier when he was the golden son of Nebraska, who refused to play for the University of Nebraska after he graduated from Wood River High School, where his mother was a coach. And he went to Stanford, right? Now, that's the first betrayal. And he did not play well at Stanford. So he came back with his tail between his legs and played for Nebraska. Now that is the prodigal son returning. And he played well, won a championship, Dr. Tom. But then leaving, he was big success at Oregon as offensive coordinator. Then he went to Florida, came close to winning all the games of the national championship. I guess he did go undefeated, and then brought back. But that's not a prodigal son returning. That's a son of Nebraska coming back to fix what's broken, but he doesn't know how to fix it. And we know why, and we're going to figure that out in a minute. But this is the report from the Omaha World Herald. This is the grade for the game. Run offense, D. Pass offense, B+. Run defense, C. Pass defense, F. Usually, I've never seen anything lower than a B in all the years I've seen this done. So when the press turns on you, you're in trouble. Special teams, D. Play calling, game management, D. Overall, your grade is a D. Well, it's not failing, but it's not going to raise your GPA. This is a terrible, terrible way for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln to start its football future. And you think about it a little bit. Now, why do people go to Nebraska? Well, there really isn't a great reason to become a student at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln other than you love football. Or because it's cheap, or because you're born there and it's the easiest place for you to get in. Because if you're born in there, you're an automatic in. But you don't really go there for physics, or for computers, or for English, or for theater. You don't go there. There are other schools that are better, that do those things better. Now, when you go to Northwestern, if you're a student, you do not go to Northwestern to play football or to be a football fan. Northwestern is not a football school. Northwestern is an intellectual genius school where the students, some of them, happen to play football. Penn State is a football school, but an outstanding school on its own. You don't go to Penn State because you're a football fan. You don't go to Michigan because you're a football fan. Maybe some go to Ohio State because you're a football fan, but it's a massive university with massive, massive reputation in many fields. Not really the same for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Its whole identity is wrapped up in So when the team loses, it's a shame for the entire state. Oh, let's see if there are comments. When I first looked at this, there were no comments. Now it looks like there are some comments. And I'll warn you now, they're going to be awful. They're going to be vitriolic, as they say in France. If I can find them. They do put a lot of pictures on here. Let's see. Oh, are there? Where are the comments? Oh, I don't see the comments. It said there were 20 comments. Maybe I missed them because I scrolled too fast. Now, if I could figure out how to go all the way back up to the top on a Windows machine, we'd be better, but I don't know how to do that. And here's another thing that I want to mention about the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. They were going to Ireland, right? A lot of fun. Okay, this is their outfit. Uniform. Standard. Everything. Now, we're Northwestern playing in the same game. Let's see if I can find an example. Here's an example. Do you see the N for Northwestern? It's usually white. And the Northwestern team made their logo on their helmet the colors of the Irish flag. Green, white, orange. They had an American flag and an Irish flag on the back of their helmet. Cute. Interesting. Culturally available. On the sidelines, they had Irish flags all over the place. Nebraska had nothing. They didn't do anything to show that they were in Ireland. It's weird. There's that wonderful N logo, and they didn't do anything. It just shows a difference in... Oh, here, how do I grade the performance of Wednesday? Oh, I'm going to say an F. How about that? Vote. Vote. View results. F, 53%. T, 39%. It was just unbearably awful. Here are the comments. Let's just see if the comments are... Let's see if they load. Sometimes they don't load because I have ad blockers on. Conversation, Fire Frost. It's so hard being right. Thompson turns out to be Martinez 2.0. He's the new quarterback that transferred in from Texas A&M. It was not great. Coaching F, tackling F, offensive line F, defense F, another loss L. The good news is this collection of misfits only had one penalty for 5 yards. That's a radical improvement over the previous penalty-prone years. The offensive line and defense will come together over the next few weeks, and the boys will put together a season-winner the bowl trip. Not happening. The Cornhusker Wire, USA Today, calls Scott Frost-led Nebraska team an unmitigated disaster. This is USA Today. They love everybody. They're the McPaper of the industry. Oh. And then it just gets, as they say, even worse. Mitch Sherman. You saw it all Saturday. It was the start of what's going to be a long, hard season. Sam McKinnon. Scott Frost didn't wait for the other shoe to fall on his team. He dropped it himself. The Athletic. Another devastating loss for Nebraska. It is officially time to start the clock on Scott Frost. This is not the type of season anyone in Lincoln wanted to see, but it's reality for Nebraska. Nebraska has everything it desires in a football program, except everything that is, except a good football team. Very true. This is very funny. Scott Frost, when he gets back to Lincoln, this is a very funny video of a drafted member of the New York Jets trying to get into the practice stadium, and he's not being let in. If there's no Scott Frost, he's been locked out of the stadium. But he would be given a $15 million goodbye check. So what else? I still can't believe Nebraska did that onside kick. Gives Scott Frost a little momentum, and he says, F it, let's go crazy. Scott Frost was basically forced to hire a special teams coordinator as a condition of keeping his job. Then it comes out the first game, calls an onside kick with an 11-point lead, immediately blows the lead. I almost respect it. Since hiring Scott Frost in 2018, the Huskers are 5-21. One-score games. That's the worst record in football over that span. Oh my God, it goes on and on and on. But this is the analysis that I truly loved. This is on Reddit. And this guy makes a very interesting point that what Nebraska and many schools do not understand is how everything has changed with this name, image, and likeness thing, where the kids are now the stars, and college football is now the NFL light. And he says what these teams like Nebraska have to realize is this is not about teams anymore. These are about kids who want to go to a university in order to get drafted into the NFL. And then this author goes on and says, over the last 10 years, have there been any astonishing players from Nebraska that made it in the NFL? There are 2 or 3, which is kind of true for any major football team. But it's not Nebraska, like Ohio State or Alabama or Texas, where half of their team gets drafted into the NFL. And that's a problem, this author says, going forward, because the students don't really care about winning games in college or winning a college national championship. What they care about is being able to graduate unhurt and unharmed, getting a high-round draft pick from an NFL team, signing for $10 million, and then taking care of their families for the rest of their lives. So until college football teams and head coaches start to realize that we need to get individual players who are terrific, Nebraska is not going to do any good. They're not going to do well. And the sad thing is, Nebraska sometimes gets like 4 out of 5-star athletes. And what Nebraska's reputation is they get the 4-star athlete, and by the time they leave the program, they're 2-star athletes. There isn't the development of talent that many of these major mainstream schools like Alabama have in place. They have a machine set up where you come in, you play, we improve you, we get you a high draft pick, you win a lot of games, you might win a national championship on the way, but when you graduate, you're going to be guaranteed to go to the NFL because we know how to make you better. And Nebraska and other teams have not quite yet figured that out. Gordon says something amusing before you're going on to your next topic. The university, biggest scale of the universe, privacy. Okay, that's not really on topic. So the idea of these universities is they have to change the thinking of their coaches. They have to change the thinking of what they want to offer when it comes to being in football. Are you a football school? Are you the training ground for an NFL team? These are the important questions the universities have to start asking themselves as they move on. And now we're going to take our first blood pressure break. Returning in a moment.
And we are back from break. I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv. And I had to make some changes on the break. Some people should not be moderators. Some people should not be VIPs. I've changed the chat to not verified chat to subscriber-only chat because there are things I don't like that are going on here. Distracting, annoying, trying to change the topic when I'm in the middle of something very important. It's very upsetting to me, and I'm not going to put up with it. So that's that. I had such a fun show ready for today. So anyway, to finish my thought, when you have a team like the University of Nebraska-Lincoln that is not doing well and that is upsetting the fan base, and I know some people don't want to hear about it, but it's my show, so I'm going to talk about it. It becomes a problem for people who are alumni and people who are big donors. And one of the biggest problems is having these people come in who give a lot of money to the university and tens of millions of dollars, and they want to decide what's going to happen next. They want to decide what happens when and where. And that's a problem. Because when you have the money people deciding what's happening in the life of a university, then no one's going to win. And it's not going to work out very well. So, it's been a rough day. And a disappointing day, a disappointing weekend, and then you arrive on Monday and there are people who don't want to listen to you. So, what are you going to do? You try to plan out a good show, you try to have a lot of fun, and then there are people who don't want to have any fun with you. They want to change the topic because they're bored. Well, that's fine. Then go do your own show. I mean, jeez. Why be here if you don't want to be a part of what I'm trying to talk about? Really? I mean, it's just so incredibly disappointing and very annoying. But hey, we all live our lives. We all make our decisions. We all find ways to annoy people and then not to annoy people. And this is the life in which we spin, in which we live. So it's okay. You got to do what you got to do. We all do. You do you. I do me. So over the weekend, another thing that was going on is this whole Trump mess. Disaster, right? He's all upset. He's stolen documents. He doesn't care that the documents are stolen. And he's making accusations against all kinds of people. And one thing that I notice in the people who are responding to him is that a lot of these online people are posting information in their Twitter feed and on their blogs about things that have been filed, posted elsewhere. It's a way of sharing documents publicly, and the URL that they're using is documentcloud.org, which I find very interesting. So I did a little bit of research into that, and it turns out that documentcloud.org is part of a larger something called Muckrock.com. And you can upload files, you can share files, you can make freedom of information requests. You can see other things that have been requested and downloaded and shared with other people. And it's a wonderful, interesting thing that helps you share information and report information to other people. It's really terrific. And it makes a lot of sense. And I like it a lot. So you have to go in there and you can become a member, a free member. You can become a publication where you can upload things and share things and search for things and download things. And that's exactly what happened over the weekend. I was very delighted to apply for verification so I can upload and also get approved as a publisher interested in freedom of information and sharing documents with other authors. And it also gives us access to other things that have been interviewed and published. A lot of law papers, all the warrants and search things that have been going on, were all there. And shareable via this service. And it turns out that once you're a member of muckrock.com, you can then be a member of their 4 or 5 other sister and brother sites. And it's really super terrific. And it gives you all kinds of interesting information. So if you're looking to be part of the information age, you can go into Muckrock and sign up. They have free plans for everybody. And if you are a publication or part of a publication, you can apply for inclusion in that as well. So that's some really good news that happened over the weekend. Well, there's the lovely Dora. Well, we had a terrible weekend and we have had a terrible morning so far. But we're very delighted to have you with us. Glad to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. So we try to figure out how to move on and go on along here. Well, I'm glad you're doing well. That's very good. And here is another delightful thing that I've discovered over the weekend. I use it in everything and everywhere. I didn't even know it existed until Amazon told me. They somehow got into my account and saw that I was ordering all my stuff for overnight oats. And they suggested that I add this to my melange. Hemp hearts, shelled hemp seeds. They're delicious. They're very nutty. They look a little bit like couscous. They offer a lot of protein and a lot of omega 3 and 6.
So you add this to your overnight oats, or you sprinkle it on your salads, or your cereal, or anything that you're eating, and it makes it just taste a lot better. Yeah, it was a bad weekend with the whole Husker thing, Dora, and then we try to figure out what's going on this morning, and people are not interested in what we have to say. So it gets very freaking annoying when you're trying to do a live show and plan it out for 2 hours. But the thing about hemp hearts that I didn't realize till after I opened it is they need to be refrigerated. So you have to have the right container to refrigerate. And I also didn't know that ground flax seeds also need to be refrigerated. But now I know. And I've learned when I get something new, read the back of the packaging to see if it's all going to fit. Chia seeds, which I guess are the secret to a good overnight oat meal, do not have to be refrigerated. Just store in a cool, dry place. And so I have. Hemp hearts, super delicious. And now we're going to take our very next blood pressure break, returning in a moment.
And we are back from break. I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv, BOLES.television, where everything and anything can happen. And it has and it will. And hey, while we're on break, Dora said, I use flax seeds. They were given to me by my neighbor, and she said nothing about refrigerating them. She brought too much. She was kind enough to give me some as well as chia seeds. Maybe the flax seeds are fine unless they're ground up. Because I bought a big bag of, I should get them from the refrigerator. Maybe I will. This is our new test pattern screen. I'll leave the mic on. Oh, I can't. Yeah, I don't have the package anymore. But I do have the seeds. Okay, I'll get the seeds. Okay, so coming back live. So these are my flax seeds that have been ground up. And I didn't grind them. I bought them this way. So maybe when they're in this state, they have to be refrigerated or they go bad. I don't know. But the chia seeds are wonderful. And as I understand it, the secret to overnight oats are the chia seeds. And it's a tablespoon and a half is what you're supposed to add per serving. Which is a lot of chia seeds, actually. But they're very delicious, and I guess it's the whole secret to health are the chia seeds. Now I'm putting this back so I can go put this back in the refrigerator. This is right here. Leaving the thing on. So maybe flax seeds in their original state, non-ground state, you don't have to refrigerate them. But I know flax oil, which we've used a lot in the past on our salads, that has to be refrigerated as well. But it seems that coconut oil, or whatever it is that we have, that seems that it can work at room temperature. So yes, Dora does have great neighbors. Some of them plant vegetables in the street. Just very wonderful. Artist Dora has not tried the overnight chia seeds yet. Yeah, I don't know how I would use a chia seed if it were not already soaked for 8 hours. They would be a little hard to eat, I think. But maybe not. So now the next topic that I have prepared, unless somebody wants to talk about Obama's tan suit instead, Fox News, is calluses care. Now this is my ugly hand, and you can see that red spot. I have it on both hands, same spot. When you exercise, especially like with kettlebells, they really can rip your hands apart. So you have to be very careful. Oh, I don't have my tape. I tell you, it's been a rough day. Test pattern again. I'm leaving the microphone on. I have to go get something that I forgot. Oh, yes. Oh, it's just fine. Okay, I'm back. It's lucky we don't have a house. We just have an apartment, so everything's this way. Dora says, aha, the cupuza flowers are thriving.
If you remember, she shared those wonderful photographs of her neighbor planting things near the road. And they're edible flowers, but I don't know if anybody's eating them. And Dora has been too busy slicing and dicing vegetables and preparing my meals. I need a chef. I understand how you feel about that. So calluses care when you're working with kettlebells is very important. And a lot of people don't take care of their hands. And they get these giant calluses that build up over time, right? And then, especially with the kettlebell, because the whole thing is twisting in your hand all day, up and down. And then they get these raised calluses. And eventually, if you don't take care of them, and you need to do it every day, they rip. So you have this big clump of dead skin that rips and shows your exposed skin underneath. So what you have to do every day after you're done working out with your kettlebells is you have to get rid of your calluses. Now, some people shave them, and there are implements you can buy on Amazon, very sharp razors, and you just cut off the dead skin that way. Some people have injured themselves doing that. So there's a slower, more methodical way, which is what I do. I have one of these that I purchased from Amazon, and I left it just a little bit dirty so you could see it better. And you wash it off, you just run it under some water. But it's like sandpaper, kind of like an emery board, right? But this one is made specifically for your calluses. So after every workout, and it gets all over you, but that's okay, because I use chalk, so I already have chalk all over me, but it's going to get all over me now. And it takes a while, and you start getting rid of your calluses. And you've done both hands. Some reason when I do my right hand on my left hand, like this, it tickles. I don't know why. And then when you're done, then you run this under water and you rinse it and you're done. Now I have callus dust all over my hands. I'm going to be very gauche and wipe it on myself. Now the question is, if you're not doing this regularly, and then what you do is, at the end of the day, you take a little bit of hand lotion, cream, just keep them soft. People think that roughing up their hands makes it better for long-term survival, but actually it's not. If you get rid of these terrible calluses, your hands are going to be better. But what happens if you don't do this, don't moisturize, you rip off your callus, you're bleeding, then what? Do you stop exercising? Some people do, and then it could take 2 or 3 weeks, and then you have to start all over again because you've lost all of your stamina and all your power. But you can get something like this, which is athletic tape. You can buy a big box like this for like $10. Super cheap. And you can use it for your wrist. You can use it for everything. This is what, like football players use, but this is a very small size. So if you have sore hands or you're developing calluses, very easy to tear. What I do is this. I put it like this and like this between each finger. Right? Gonna cover up that ugly blood blister spot that I have on both of my hands, and it's not coming off, and it's new. I don't know how it got there. That's what happens sometimes when you go up in weight. You get a little too much. Now, some people say, oh, I want to wear gloves when I use kettlebells. And that is always, from everyone I've talked to, a giant never. Never use gloves when you're working out with barbell, kettlebell, but especially kettlebells, because you don't have a good grip on the bell, you're not strengthening your hands, and you're actually hurting yourself. Now, if I really wanted to be fancy, and maybe I should be fancy, is I would take a bigger piece like this, and then you do a wraparound. This. All right, so you've done in between each finger. And then you do just one that wraps around and holds it all down. So when you go do your next exercise, it almost looks like you're getting ready to be a boxer. But this will still give you a nice grip. You're still in control when you're dealing with a kettlebell. And on the next break, I will go do a little kettlebell exercise and show you what this looks like when I get back. So I have to do my other hand because of my impending OCD. But that's okay. Because it's been a crazy, strange mess of a day, I tell you that. Things happen. Things begin. Things end. Everything is a beginning. Everything is a conclusion. Some things work and some things just don't. But this is going to work. I've done this before because I made the mistake when I started with my kettlebells. Is I didn't really understand what it meant to take care of your calluses. I just went out there and did it. And then I had some bleeding and some tearing, and then it was like, well, this really hurts. Now what do I do? And then you start getting a little smarter and asking people, and they say, oh, no, you're not doing it right. You have to get rid of the calluses after every session. Every day you got to go in there and take care of it, or you're going to be doing wound care instead of exercising. And I'm sure this is, really thrilling to watch, but it's better than Obama in his tan suit. I can tell you that right now. That's a guarantee. That's an absolute guarantee. Yeah. So I feel like I'm ready to box. Not take on Mike Tyson or anything like that, never. But I am ready to kettlebell. Samuel Cunningham is a new follower. Thank you so much for being here. Nice to meet you, Samuel Cunningham. Now, this whole student loan forgiveness thing is great and a waste of time. What do you mean? I mean, let's be serious. People who need help with their student loans, and I know a lot of them because I went to an Ivy League school, and I was a poor kid, and I went to school with a lot of other poor kids who didn't have any money. And the only way to make it through an Ivy League school education, even if you have, scholarships and grants and wonderful things, is you're going to take out student loans. And of course, when you're young and eager, you think the world is ahead of you and no one will defeat you, and you're going to be able to pay off every debt you have. And then the real world punches you right in the face. And it's so funny. The other day, several years ago, I was going to the doctor. I was picked up by an Uber driver. And I was in the back and the driver was in the front. It was a gloomy Gus sort of day. And we were driving by the local high school, and all these young, fresh-faced, beautiful children, 17, 18-year-olds, in the streets, making the cars stop, running back and forth. They're in their school outfits, so they all look the same, and they all look delightful and beautifully smart. And my Uber driver turned around to me and said, if they only knew what's coming for them. And I looked at my driver, my new friend, and I said, wow, I know exactly what you mean. They have no idea how soon they are about to get punched in the face, just by real life. And these are, I don't want to say inner city kids, but kids from the big city who are very tough. But when you're in high school, the whole world is before you. You think you're invincible. And then the real world hits you. So the student loan thing from Biden is, not really a solution for people who really need the help. And as we see, our friend AOC, hey, vows to keep pushing for more student loan forgiveness, saying Biden's relief still leaves a question mark for those in the highest amount of debt. Now, that's why I love AOC, because she's always out there. She's always fighting. She's incredibly smart. And I just think she's a wonderful person. Biden canceled up to $20,000 in student loan debt for federal borrowers. We'll see about that. AOC lauded the relief, but then said she's going to keep pushing for those with higher debt amounts. While Joe Biden said this would be a one-time broad relief, Ocasio-Cortez doesn't think it suffices. It was your pushing, your pressure, your organizing that got them to this point, AOC wrote in an Instagram post, referring to Biden's student loan forgiveness. It's up to us and to you to decide if we are going to stop here, if we are going to keep pushing. She added, I'm very grateful for this watershed moment of a first step. It is so encouraging, thrilling, and has already changed so many people's lives. But I'm also thinking about how this still leaves a question mark for those in the highest amounts of debt who need the most amount of help. So let's celebrate and keep going. It's not even a drop in a bucket, a borrower with over $300,000 in student debt previously said. If you want to make a real difference, you could do away with half the interest we've accrued. But for now, I'll never be able to cover the payments. And you think, how is that possible? And then there's this fantastic article, published recently, yesterday, from the New Yorker. And it's brilliantly written. And here's how it starts. In 1983, at the age of 52, Betty Ann enrolled in New York University's law school. As a middle-aged black woman, she wasn't exactly the typical NYU law student. Her white male classmates would slyly elbow her books off the long library tables, and once, while standing at her locker, a classmate waved a $10,000 tuition check signed by his father in her face. Betty Ann had borrowed $29,000 in federal loans, which is really nothing for a law school degree. Today, she owes $329,000 in student debt. Betty is 91 years old. So that is who AOC is talking about. If you're going to forgive and forget, go all the way. Don't go halfway. American age 62 and older are the fastest growing demographic of student borrowers. Of the 45 million Americans who hold student debt, 1 in 5 are over 50 years old. Between 2004 and 2018, a student loan balance for borrowers over 50 increased by 512%. Perhaps because policymakers have considered student debt as the burden of upwardly mobile young people, inaction has seemed a reasonable response, as if time itself will solve the problem. But in an era of declining wages and rising debt, Americans are not aging out of their student loans. They are aging into them. And the good thing about Biden's loan forgiveness is that $10,000 he's forgiving is not going to be considered income. If you're on an income-based repayment plan and you make payments for 10 years, 25 years, depending on whatever scheme is being followed, and your debt is then forgiven, the remainder of your debt, which can be $200,000, $300,000, is reported to the IRS as income. So you're 91 years old, your loans have been discharged, right? But you're on the hook as income, even though it's not income, for $300,000 with the IRS. The student loan debt crisis is particularly dire for black borrowers. Racial wealth gaps mean that black debtors borrow more to attend college and carry balances for a longer time, effectively paying more for the same degree than their white classmates. 4 years after graduating, nearly half of black graduates owe more on their loans than their initial balance, compared with just 17% of white graduates. It's a very long, interesting story. They talk about like 4 or 5 different people. Some parents are stuck with paying for loans even if their child is dead. Calvin Nafzinger, who is 80, pays $250 each month for private loans for his son who died 3 years ago. I'll probably be dead myself before I finish paying those off. Student debts can plague borrowers until their last breath, jeopardizing even the government's meager protections for those of old age, Social Security. Defaulted student loans can trigger the Department of Education to command garnishment for tax refunds, wages, and Social Security. Up to 10% of your Social Security check can be taken by the government to pay for your student loans. Many prospective employers required this other woman to submit her undergraduate transcripts as part of the application for a job. But because she still owed money from her undergraduate degree, Queens College refused to release her transcripts. CUNY has now ended this policy known as transcript ransom, but only last year. My way of getting employment after 2001 was very inconsistent. She worked mostly temporary jobs for the next 13 years because she could not prove that she had graduated because her university would not let her have her transcript until she had paid what she owed them. Another took retirement as soon as she could, scraping by in a combination of food stamps and Social Security payments. She knew her debt had reduced her Social Security benefits. Her last decade of earnings were her lowest, but she was shocked to learn that the outstanding student debt had enabled the Treasury Department to garnish around 10% of her roughly $1,000 Social Security payments since at least 2014. It was just plunder. IDR's promise of cancellation after paying for a certain amount of time has proved to be a mere mirage. I know, it's happened to people I know. They make payments, they're not recorded properly, they don't get credit, their debt is not waived. More than 4 million borrowers could have accessed the IDR loan cancellation, but only 157 had ever received the cancellation. So it's a big problem. It's not going away. The one and only chance probably in this generation of getting this fixed was with Joe Biden, and he really didn't fix it at all. 10,000's great for some people. For other people, it's absolutely no different in the world. It makes no change in their life. Because $10,000 doesn't even cover the interest payments that they owe after years and years and years of paying. They start with a $30,000 debt, and they end up, because of interest and penalties, owing $300,000. And now it is time for our final blood pressure break of the day, returning in a moment. And we are back on Boles.tv, BOLES.tv, BOLES.television, coming to you live and in concert Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. And we have some closed captions going on as well. So, on the break, I went and did a little bit of a kettlebell exercise, a little bit of one-handed swings, and this is what happens. Not great. I should have wrapped it a little bit lower. See, I don't use tape when I use kettlebells, but it is a great, my calluses are completely protected. But with this going up like this, it makes it very slippery. So it was harder to hang on to, as they say in the trade. But it protected, if I had open wounds, my open wounds. But I would just have to maybe do another couple of wraps so I get a little lower down to my thumb so it doesn't skate on me. And now we turn briefly to this terrible war going on in Ukraine. We have two good friends on opposite sides of the bomb, as they say. One is our friend Alexander, that is not Alexander, who lives in Ukraine, and he dedicates his life right now to supplying the front line with food, materials, clothing, and he's doing well so far. He has 4 young children, 3 of which are of minor age. And he has been called up to serve, to fight in the front line. It's a little terrifying. And before he said, when the time came, he was going to get out. Because he has minor children, he was allowed to leave with them. All other men, I guess, are required to stay in Ukraine and fight. But now he's decided that now that he's been called up, his family will stay, and then he will go and fight. So he sent us this picture on our Discord server where we have a lot of great conversation with him, as well as this photograph, which is a spent bomb. It's distressing. And this is Alexander's Twitter account where he shares photos of his family. I'm willing to give my all so that they may live. And this is another thing he said over the weekend. For all of this, they will be held accountable. My children and grandchildren will remember and hate. A young woman lost her arm to the war. Another child, no legs, blown off by a Putin bomb. Again, no legs, blown off by a Putin bomb. A bloody infant being taken into the hospital. And here's our friend Alexander with one of these recovered implements of death. That is Alexander, getting ready to spike it into the ground with disgust and hatred. Our friend Artist Dora says, I can't imagine what they're going through. It's heartbreaking. It really is. It's unfathomable. As Janice says, she goes to Trader Joe's, sits in the park, and wonders about how wonderful her life is, and how our friend Alexander, half a world away, has bombs going over his head every day. And she's very grateful for what she has. So I then went and spoke to the other side of our realm, who is Igba, who is a Russian artist living in Russia. And he is against the war. He is against Putin. He supports our friend Alexander. They have talked. And I'm reading these updates that Putin is now escalating the draft status of young men in Russia. And I asked him about it a couple of days ago, and Igba said, well, those are really just for people who are not of a certain status. Prisoners, convicts, drug addicts, they're just out on the street. They want to eat. They'll sign up to go fight. They'll be drafted. Well, this new draft, Putin's looking for like 300,000 people. I said, is this now getting closer to you? And this is what our friend Igba said, and I can't show it to you because there are some things there that I have had to edit out. Because I don't want to, put him in any danger. So this is Igba's first reply to me. God gives strength to the Ukrainian army to line up against Putin's fascists. This is a great tragedy. I heard that many soldiers from Russia go over to the side of Ukraine. They don't fight, but apparently not enough of them. If it continues, I remember from history how Stalin was poisoned by his entourage. I very much hope that the same thing will happen to Putin as soon as possible. It is the only way to save innocent lives. But his Secret Service people are protecting him. I've heard there have been many attempts on Putin's life, but those who planned it were killed. That's pretty heavy stuff. And then about getting called up, is it his turn? Igba said this: "It can touch me at any time. We have all the things we need, and in case the draft starts in the territory where I am, I and my friends will go straight to Georgia. Not the American Georgia, the European Georgia. If we have time. Creativity is the only world where I can abstract myself from harsh reality. I don't know what will happen next. For months now, my head's been in a fog. I don't know what's going on. How is this allowed to happen? Why did the army follow criminal orders? Creativity is the world I've been immersed in. I don't want to sink into reality. It's brutal. Some things turned over after endless worrying. I can't even find the words. It's like I'm alive when I paint. I can't explain it. Maybe I need to see a psychologist." Well, that's an interesting end to what has been a very interesting stream today. We talked about Husker football. We talked about hemp hearts. Talked about chia, flax seeds. Talked about the war. Talked about AOC. Talked about student loan debt. Talked about protecting your hands when you're exercising with your kettlebells. So if you have any questions or comments, you can email me, david@boles.tv. You can find me on Twitter @DavidBoles, super follow to follow. On Facebook, it's BOLES. On Instagram, Boles Books. TikTok, Boles TV. And if you're interested in joining us on our Discord server, here's our social media information where you can come and join us right now and have a great time and find lots of information about many interesting things. And here is the actual link to our Discord server in case you want to come and hang out. So until tomorrow, I wish you a great day, a wonderful nap, and when ye shall awaken, may your soul be filled with joy and hemp hearts. I'll see you tomorrow.